CISA just added a new baseboard management controller vulnerability to their list, their catalog of known exploited vulnerabilities. And this is a big deal because it's the first that I know of baseboard management controller vulnerability that's been added to the KEV. And I'm going to quote the Ars Technica article by Dan Gooden about it because I think he put it really well. This actively exploited vulnerability could give attackers extraordinary control over server fleets. So this is a vulnerability that was discovered by Eclypsium in AMI MegaRAC firmware, which is used in servers from AMD, ARM, Fujitsu, Gigabyte, Supermicro, etc. It has a severity rating of 10 out of possible 10, so highest criticality rating, and AMI MegaRAC firmware is a widely used package that allows large fleets of servers to be remotely accessed and managed even when power is unavailable or the operating system isn't functioning. So this is a big deal, and I'm going to show you how to discover BMCs, inventory your baseboard management controllers inside of your environment, and also how to discover this exact vulnerability if it exists inside of your environment. So a little bit of background on BMCs. A baseboard management controller is a little chip that exists on, inside of many servers and other parts of data center and AI data center infrastructure, and it's used for that sort of remote management capability. And if this is vulnerable, it can grant attackers extremely deep and persistent access inside of the environment. So this little ASPEED chip right here is an example of one of these components that typically are not being monitored, not being scanned by vulnerability managers, and generally operate outside the visibility of typical security solutions that are going to be present in your network environment or in your data center. And I really like this article from Cloudflare back from 2022 when Eclypsium notified them about a new critical vulnerability that was affecting popular BMC software that they used in their fleet. They've got these excellent little diagrams of exactly how the baseboard management controller is positioned and what it has access to, and sort of the controls or the potential impact of an attacker having access to a baseboard management controller. So this is a really big deal that there is one of these vulnerabilities being actively exploited in the wild. And I'm going to show you how to discover this type of component and whether it's vulnerable inside your environment using Eclypsium. So I'm going to start at the Eclypsium management console. I'm going to go over to our assets list, and this shows a full list of everything that Eclypsium can see or has been scanned inside of your environment, along with their integrity, whether they have vulnerabilities, their firmware version, which is meaningful in the case of this baseboard management controller firmware. You can see in our demo environment here, we've got this server BMC from AMI listed right up top here. I'm just going to click into that and show what we can see about it. We've got this AMI BMC Linux component that says it has one vulnerability. And if I open that up, you can see that the vulnerability that's listed is the one that we're talking about right now that was just added to the CISA KEV. That's CVE 2024-54085. If I click in there, we'll get a little bit more details about it. The overview says AMI's SPX contains a vulnerability in the BMC where an attacker may bypass authentication remotely through the Redfish host interface. A successful exploitation of this vulnerability could lead to loss, confidentiality, integrity, and/or availability. Now, AMI has issued a patch for this vulnerability, but because it's a firmware that exists in components that are provided by other vendors like ASPEED, if you have these components in your environment, you have to wait for the vendor of your component to incorporate the patch that's been issued by AMI. So there could be a little bit of a lag time. And when a vulnerability gets added to the CISA Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog, that triggers Binding Operational Directive 22-01, which says that federal agencies have a certain amount of time, 3 weeks, to patch or mitigate this vulnerability. And because of the sort of supply chain layers that have to all work together to get this patch rolled out, it's going to be really difficult to meet that requirement. So patching might take a while, but getting mitigating controls and microsegmentation in place to make sure that this vulnerability is not accessible and can't be exploited by an attacker inside of your environment is really crucial right now. And so that's that vulnerability. Now, if you want to get just an inventory of baseboard management controllers inside of your environment so that you can see throughout your environment in all of your devices what has baseboard management, what brands do you have in there, what would you do? So in Eclypsium, from the asset list over here, you can click filters, you can click baseboard management, and X out of there. And now we're just showing a list of components or devices inside of your environment that have baseboard management controller components listed in them. So you can see here, we have a lot of GPU servers in here. This is sort of the AI data center area of our demo environment here. And none of these have the vulnerable AMI MegaRAC firmware in them. But if you click into one of these devices, you can go down and you can see what the baseboard management brand is. These have a Supermicro baseboard management controller in them, and you can click in to get more information, really deep details about the baseboard management controller inside of that environment, so that you can get visibility into the inventory of your baseboard management controllers and whether any of them have known vulnerabilities in them. So if we click around through all of our various items that have baseboard management controllers inside of them, we might be able to find some other vulnerabilities that exist in here. It looks like this Nokia device has 8 vulnerabilities on it. Looks like the baseboard management controller has 2 of them. We click in there, we can see this one has the CVE 2019-6260, which is nicknamed Pants Down, which is a different unauthenticated arbitrary access vulnerability in baseboard management controllers. So historically, Eclypsium has reported many baseboard management controller vulnerabilities, but as of now, just a few days ago, is the first time that one of these BMC vulnerabilities has been added to the known exploited vulnerabilities list. And this represents sort of a continuation of an attacker behavior trend that we've been seeing, where cyber attackers are targeting these low-level network device infrastructural components that are typically not being watched by cybersecurity monitoring solutions, and also have a great deal of access to other components and assets, and therefore make a great starting point for attackers to establish a beachhead, move laterally, and be able to either exfiltrate data without being detected, or move laterally to take over other devices in the environment and generally cause a lot of havoc inside of the environment once they're inside. So that's how you can use Eclypsium to inventory the baseboard management controllers inside of your environment and gain visibility into which vendors and which firmware they have installed on them, and also find out whether you have any instances of the AMI MegaRAC firmware that might be vulnerable to CVE 2024-54085, which has just been added to the KEV. Thanks for watching.